Hi, I'm Phil Rude, and this is my 100 days of making comics halfway point video. That's right, today is day 50. I am halfway through. It is flying by pretty fast. I'm getting a lot done. It's pretty incredible to see that I have done this for 50 days straight. It seems like I just started it. So it's really cool that it hasn't been a chore. It hasn't been Sisyphus rolling the rock up the hill in the sense of a punishment. Side mythology note, I recently heard the idea on the podcast that Sisyphus actually took joy in having a purpose every day. The idea that Sisyphus enjoyed rolling the rock up the hill. And that's the way I'm sort of looking at this challenge. It's a half hour a day, and you can look at it as I have to carve out a half hour of my day to work on comics versus I get to carve out a half hour of my day and work on my comic. If you are the former instead of the latter, maybe you want to work on that. Just a suggestion. We're all, like I said in a previous video, most of us are not making very much money at doing this. Precious few of us get to quit our day jobs. I am not one of them. You better be doing this because you enjoy doing it, is kind of my point. Another side note, if I sound a little bit out of breath, I just ate at Five Guys, so I am carrying a food baby and am a little sleepy. Luckily, I got my time in on the board today already, and that's what you're looking at right now. I inked a few panels of my next episode of The Adventures of Professor Whiskers. In the last few days, I have completed a short 3-page episode that I threw up online webtoon last week. It's just a sort of an extended comic strip. I just sort of dragged it out over a few pages just for fun. I'm not a comic strip guy. Whittling it down into a few panels is, good Lord, that is a talent that I do not have. I'm far too long-winded, as I'm sure is evidenced by the rambling of these videos. On another note, or on that same note, I should say, the 3-page story, I really liked the quick turnaround of it. And I am looking at the possibility of sort of doing these longer episodes, like episode 1 and 2 of my comic, which are, I want to say 15 or 16 page stories each, somewhere in that neighborhood. Breaking those down into 5 to 8 page shorter chunks and posting those as I get them done. It helps me not feel like the hill I'm rolling, to use the Sisyphus analogy again, not feel like I'm rolling the boulder up a hill that's too steep, something I can reach the top of on a fairly short basis. And also, I think it helps people, the few people who have subscribed to my comic, they're not waiting a month to 6 weeks between new content hitting it. I know that you can watch my Instagram feed, you can watch these videos here and see it being made, but to see the finished product is, you want something to hit a little more frequently. And also, I'm not going to lie, I enjoy getting feedback, so I want to post new stuff more often. So that is stuff I'm sort of figuring out, and it is something I am thankful to this challenge for, is because it has pushed me to, instead of just doing these comics and figuring out, well, I guess I'll just release them. It's sort of pushed me into, well, let me throw them online. Webtoon, this format, this site I've been eyeing for a while. I finally pulled the trigger on it this year, and I did that when I started the challenge, the 100 Days of Making Comics challenge. So I am glad that it has pushed me to do that, and in the time that I've been doing this challenge, I'm already sort of looking at tweaking how I release this comic, which is cool. I think a lot of us should be not just making the thing mindlessly, but I think there is something cool about sort of looking at how we do it, why we do it that way, the way we do. And is there another way that might work, or is at the very least, worth trying? I'm not saying that releasing 5 to 8 page chunks at a time is the best way to do it, but I think it's worth trying. So for me, it's very much experimental, and I'm kind of enjoying that aspect of it right now. The last thing I want to hit on, I'm sort of hitting a few points today and tangents about fast food and Greek mythology. But I also want to talk about something else I've been thinking about lately, and that is consuming more comics. I've kind of realized recently I don't read comics as much as I used to. I don't read, period, as much as I used to. In the last month, I think I've picked up more books and made more time to read, and also more comics I've started reading in the last week. I picked up the collected edition of Jeff Lemire's Essex County, which a friend of mine loaned me, Jason Mack, thank you. He loaned me that a few months ago, and I am finally getting around to reading it. And I love Jeff Lemire's work, so why I have not read it sooner is beyond me. And I'm really enjoying it. And I think that as creators, and I hear this from a lot of comics people when they ask a comic creator, what are you reading now, in an interview, and they'll go, well, I don't really have time to read. And I understand deadlines, and I understand there's a volume of work that has to get done. But I have also noticed that when I make time to read more, I am sort of, forgive the expression because it sounds more highfalutin than it is, I'm more intellectually stimulated. I am thinking more about comics and about storytelling. When I'm taking in a story, I'm not just taking in the story, I'm also taking in the craft of how this story is presented, no matter what the format. Jeff Lemire, I think, is a great example of that because his art is deceptively simple. It is sketchy, and that brings the story to the forefront a little bit more and makes you appreciate how he presents it visually. And I've gotten so much over the last week just from looking over that book, that it sort of made me realize there's so much knowledge to be had just in consuming and paying attention to what you're consuming. So that is my advice. You can take it for what it's worth, about, that's what I want my big kind of takeaway. I'm not assigning homework. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a mentor in any way. This is just something I've discovered and I want to pass along. Is I think it behooves us all to sort of make time to consume things as well. I don't carry my sketchbook with me as much. I don't crack it open every time I have a minute to sit down. I carry actual books with me a little bit more than I used to now. It's not all about sketching every single minute. It's not all about creating every single waking minute. It is about consuming at a certain point. And I think, to call back to an earlier video of mine, where I talked about balance in your life, I think that's another balance you need to strike. You don't want to sit around and watch TV all the time, but if you are selective about things that you do watch and the way they present stories, that's another way to consume media and learn some things. And it is easy to spiral into being a consumer. It's so much easier to consume, than to create. So it's easy to lose the balance in that way, but it's sort of a discipline and sort of a tightrope to walk. And I think it's worth walking. So I suggest to anybody, find a book, find a movie, find a TV show you can take in that is interesting to you and presents story in an interesting way, that you can take something away from. And if you have such a thing, let me know. Drop it in the comment. Drop a Amazon or a Half Price Books link to it. Share what you love about it. I love book recommendations. I love media recommendations from people. What are you taking in, and how is it influencing your work? Let's do that in the comments. So if you have something, please share it. Or if you have thoughts about things that I've said, if you think I'm talking out my ass, please feel free to let me know, and let me know why. If you agree with me, give me a high five in the comments and let me know. And also, my giant recommendation, Jeff Lemire's Essex County, or anything by Jeff Lemire. I think that guy is incredible, and he's great, and you guys should read his stuff. He is a great visual storyteller. But enough of me pumping up Jeff Lemire and his awesome comics and reading in general. Reading is fundamental, yo. That is going to do it for me. Please read The Adventures of Professor Whiskers online webtoon, and I will talk to you guys next time.